most important skills in life is knowing when to acknowledge something and when to ignore something. We acknowledge the things we love and the things that make us happy while ignoring the things that don't do that for us. It's a modern day coping mechanism for being overwhelmed with so much information. And unfortunately, this is very much a skill the modern day Naruto fan has to apply to their fandom. See, there are moments in Naruto that are absolutely worth acknowledging and revering because they're gorgeous, well written, and well put together. But at the same time, there's absolutely moments that are worth ignoring. Moments when logic flew out the window or that are just straight up plot holes. And today we're going to be talking about one of those moments where logic flew directly out the window. See, today we're going to be talking about the idea of Konan taking Nagato's Rinnegan back with her to the hidden rain. Well, it's not like she plucked out his eyeballs and then left him in Konoha. She brought his whole body, including the Rinnegan, back to the hidden rain, which to this day is one of the most head-scratchingly stupid things we've seen in Naruto. Well, obviously Konan was sufficiently prepared for Obito, pushing him to the point where he had to use Izanagi and his non-Kamui Eye to survive. There was absolutely better choices for Nagato's Rinnegan than simply being brought back to the hidden rain to possibly be buried. And the most obvious choice of all of the choices that Konan could have made was give those Rinnegan to the kid who just talked Nagato into unaliving himself, as Konan was fully aware that Nagato was an Uzumaki and was also fully aware of the fact that Naruto is half Uzumaki. His last name is Uzumaki, which means that it should have been entirely clear and obvious that Naruto could have wielded the two Rinnegan in Nagato's face. And not only was Naruto a possible donor for the strongest set of dojutsu in the entire universe, Naruto also had an entire system around him called Konoha that would keep him in the Rinnegan safe. So why didn't this happen? Well, plot necessity. The Rinnegan needed to be in a place where they were vulnerable enough that Obito would be able to get his hands on it. And if the Rinnegan were in Naruto's face, that is not a vulnerable enough place. But what if we ignored plot necessity? What if instead of going back to the hidden rain with Nagato's body with the Rinnegan still intact, that Konan had made the logical choice? Well, that's what we're going to be exploring today. What if Naruto got the Rinnegan? Now, so far as what ifs go, this one doesn't change a whole lot about the story, until it absolutely changes a whole lot about the story. But it is a bit tricky, because calculating how long it would take Naruto to get proficient with the Rinnegan and how powerful he would be with the Rinnegan are kind of tough calculations to make. So per usual, when it comes to what if videos, suspend your disbelief for the next 20 or 30 minutes. With that being said, I've spent the entire morning rereading the war arc, so it's gonna be as accurate as it possibly could be. But before we get to chasing after hypotheticals, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, hit that noti bell. And before we get to explaining this long-winded hypothetical, guys, I got another hypothetical for you. If you enjoyed the sound of my voice talking about anime, then hypothetically you should probably follow my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where instead of talking about Naruto and Boruto, I talk about all other anime. If I could be so real, one day I'm gonna run out of Naruto and Boruto content to talk about. If you like me being a YouTuber, and trust me, I like me being a YouTuber, please follow that page. And if you like the idea of my voice talking about other anime, then you're gonna love my brand new anime podcast, Otaku's Anonymous, where me and Danny Mata break down everything that happened in anime this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So, logical decisions. Let's be real. We don't all always make them all the time. Humans are unfortunately weighed down by a little thing called emotions. And while a lot of us would say that 100% of the time we make the most logical decision possible, usually emotions sway what we choose. And unfortunately, in the case of Konan, that is exactly what happened. Konan, who was in love with both Nagato and Yahiko at different points of her life, wanted to be able to bury Nagato in his home village. I'm presuming that was all of Nagato, eyes included. However, unfortunately for Konan, that put her directly in Obito's crosshairs. But what if Konan had made the logical decision? What if she had given Nagato's Rinnegan to Naruto? Well, Naruto has enough chakra to wield the Rinnegan, maybe not as a person, but as a Jinchuriki. See, the real reason that Nagato had enough chakra to wield the Rinnegan is because he was a full-blooded Uzumaki, which meant as a human, he had more chakra than Naruto, but Naruto has the 9 tails inside of him. So let's presume for a second that after Nagato has used Rinnegan Rebirth and brought all of Konoha back to life, that Naruto takes his eyeballs. The initial shock to Naruto would be immense. Naruto as a half Uzumaki would probably have enough chakra to walk around with the Rinnegan, and maybe even to use them occasionally. But if Naruto ever wanted to get serious about actually using the Rinnegan in the way that Nagato actually used the Rinnegan, he would have to rely on Kurama's power. And for those of you who don't remember, the Pain Arc happens before Naruto unlocks KCM, which means that anytime Naruto relied on the power of Kurama, that was Kurama seeping chakra into his system to loosen the seal, which means that in order for Naruto to use the Rinnegan in a way that would be helpful, he would have to accelerate his timeline of training with Kurama. Fortunately, the next thing that Naruto does after the pain assault is going to train with Kurama and unlock KCM. But this would be a bit more complicated than it is in the original manga, because now instead of the crosshairs being directly on Konan, the crosshairs are directly on Naruto. And while the crosshairs have always been directly on Naruto, now Obito needs Naruto even more than he did originally, as Naruto, with a fully mastered control over the Rinnegan, could control the Geto statue. And without the Geto statue, you don't get the Ten Tails. And with the Ten Tails, you don't get the Divine Tree. Without the Divine Tree, you don't get the Chakra Fruit or Infinite Tsukiyomi or anything. But long before Naruto can fully master the Rinnegan, he needs to fully master his own chakra network. And therefore, much in the same capacity as the original manga, Naruto would go to the island where the Waterfall of Truth is with Killer Bee. Now, while one could assume that Obito would move in directly after the pain assault to rip those eyes out of Naruto, Obito is kind of busy during the pain assault. Well, technically, this is absolutely the best time to attack Konoha, with Jiraiya dead, Tsunade in a coma, Danzo as the Hokage, and really the only person who would even have a chance against Obito in that current moment in Konoha is Might Guy. I don't believe Obito would move in this soon, because Obito doesn't go to the Hidden Rain to attack Konan for the Rinnegan until after the 5 Kage Summit. That is to say, without the Rinnegan in his own possession, Obito goes to the 5 Kage Summit to declare war. And this is for a couple of reasons, mostly due to the fact that that current version of Obito was heavily focused on Sasuke, transplanting Itachi's eyes into Sasuke, revealing the truth about Itachi to Sasuke, as Obito was grooming Sasuke to join his side. Obito would probably realize the fact that it took Nagato almost a decade to fully master his Rinnegan power, and therefore the chance of Naruto mastering the Rinnegan powers and becoming an actual threat to him in a matter of weeks was slim to none. Therefore, Obito would probably do all the things he does in the original manga prior to going to the Hidden Rain, going to the 5 Kage Summit with Sasuke, saving his ass a couple of times, and then helping him kill Danzo. However, the killing of Danzo now has even more reason behind it, because the killing of Danzo further weakens Konoha, which would make it easier for Obito to slip in and steal the eyes from Naruto. But with Danzo dead, that still means that Kakashi becomes the 6th Hokage, and that more likely than not, the 5 nations would still come together to form the Shinobi Alliance to fight in the 4th Great Shinobi World War. And with Kakashi as Hokage, once again, Konoha would prioritize Naruto maturing. That is to say, once again, that Naruto would be sent to the island where the Waterfall of Truth is with Killer Bee, Yamato, and Might Guy, in order to gain a full mastery over Kurama. That way he can fuel the power to his Rinnegan, which, mind you, since they're not his dojutsu, he can't deactivate. And this arc goes relatively the same, except for the part where Naruto has to battle against Kurama. And considering the fact that the Rinnegan is basically a dojutsu fully wrapped around the idea of being able to bind other people's souls, Naruto pretty easily defeats Kurama, as he was able to defeat Kurama without the Rinnegan. Now, whether or not Naruto gets pushed to the point where he needs Kushina to help him to battle against Kurama, I can't really say. For the sake of my own mental and how cute the scene is of Kushina and Naruto having their first conversation, let's say, yes, he still gets to the point where he meets Kushina. And bing bang boom, Naruto gets KCM 1. Now, considering the fact that it took Sasuke all of, what, hours, if not minutes, to figure out how to work the 6 Tome Rinnegan, I'm assuming with a couple of weeks and or a month or so that Naruto would be able to figure out the bare essentials of the Rinnegan. Now, obviously, one could make the argument that Sasuke is a genius and he's had dojutsu his entire life, and therefore making the adjustment to having a 6 Tome Rinnegan from a dual EMS isn't a huge jump, as the natural progression from a Sharingan is to a Rinnegan in the first place. But Sasuke figuring out how to use the 6 Tome Rinnegan isn't the only example we see of somebody transplanting a dojutsu into their face and mastering it instantly. Madara, after stealing Kakashi's Kamui, was able to use Kamui as a 10 Tails Jinchuriki, something that Obito couldn't do immediately. Danzo was able to master Kodo Matsukame and Izanagi by transplanting Sharingan into his body, and he had no previous experience with dojutsu. Even Nagato, as a young child and not as a shinobi whatsoever, was able to kill Konoha Jonin with the power of his Rinnegan. So to assume that Naruto, who was absolutely a genius when it comes to being a ninja, would be able to figure out the Rinnegan in a couple of weeks, not crazy. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be as proficient as Nagato, because obviously Nagato trained for years, but he doesn't need to be, because as a base human without a Rinnegan, he was significantly stronger than Nagato. So let's assume at this point of Naruto mastering KCM1 that he knows how to use the techniques of the Rinnegan, but maybe not how to use them efficiently or in consecutive order. He's like me playing Apex Legends. I know how to aim, I know how to shoot, I know how to slide. That doesn't mean I'm It's Timmy. However, after Naruto masters KCM1, something interesting happens on this little island. See, it's revealed to us that Kisame has been living inside of Samehara, working as an infiltrator, finding out information about the hidden cloud. And because of the justice were served to Kisame in Might Guy's final battle. And more likely than not, that wouldn't change. What would change though is that instead of just Kisame, Obito would have definitely tagged along. Because around this time, Obito was in the Hidden Rain killing Kona. But now there's no need for him to go to the Hidden Rain. He doesn't need Nagato's body, he needs Nagato's eyeballs. So instead of just Kisame pulling up on this island, it's now Kisame and Obito, which is a terrifying duo. But assuming that Kisame is null and void, because obviously we know Might Guy kills him, that leaves us with a battle between Killer Bee, Naruto, and Obito, which honestly is an interesting battle. See, we know that a white Zetsu clone of Kisame pushed Killer Bee to kind of his limits, even though Killer Bee didn't fully transform into Gyuki, so he wasn't going all out. But what if Killer Bee had gone all out and turned into Gyuki? He probably would have absolutely dog-walked Kisame, or at least the battle would have been closer. And now I know Kisame is not as strong as Obito, but Kisame is absolutely probably the third or fourth strongest member of the Akatsuki. But Killer Bee isn't the only person that Obito's battling against here. He's also battling against Naruto with KCM1 in Rinnegan. See, the problem for Obito here is that KCM1 Naruto is as fast as Minato. We know this because KCM1 Naruto was faster than the 4th Raikage using Lightning Cloak, which puts him as close to or equal to Minato as we're gonna get. And we know that Minato's speed was enough to speed blitz Obito. Now, obviously, the speed blitz of Obito relied heavily on Flying Raijin and the fact that this was a significantly younger, less experienced Obito, but you can't deny speed. What you also can't deny is the defensive capabilities of KCM. See, we understand that the KCM2 version that Naruto uses in Naruto the Last confers him a planetary level defense rating, as he was able to take a hit from Toneri that cut the moon in half. Now, while obviously KCM1 not boosted with Sage of Six Past Chakra doesn't have that level of defense, to assume that Naruto with KCM1 has city level or possibly island level defense isn't crazy. And honestly, while Obito is obviously very strong, I don't know if this version of Obito has anything that could kill Naruto in KCM1. Like, yes, he has Kamui, but his Kamui only works defensively. Obviously, he's incredibly proficient in Taijutsu. We saw him in his battle against Kakashi, and his ninjutsu prowess is nothing to scoff at, with his great fireball technique being one of the greater ones in the show. But really, the only thing that I think he could use against Naruto that would put Naruto down for the count in this circumstance would be Genjutsu, as we know that Obito has a Genjutsu that was able to put Yagura, a perfect Jinchuriki, in a Genjutsu so complete, even he didn't know he was under it for years. But here's the thing, Tsunade compared this Genjutsu to Kodo Matsukame, going so far as to believe that Obito and Shisui might have actually been related. So there's a possibility that Obito's Genjutsu, just like Shisui's Genjutsu, has a cooldown. But assuming it doesn't, and that it operates exactly like Kodo Matsukame, meaning that Obito doesn't have to make eye contact with the person he's trying to launch this Genjutsu onto, then Obito does have the possibility to either put Killer Bee or Naruto under Genjutsu. Now, the problem with this is that immediately the other would figure out that the other was under Genjutsu. And we learned from Ao being able to break Yagura out of the Genjutsu that Obito placed him under that all you have to do is break it like a regular Genjutsu. There's also the fact that obviously, yes, Yagura was a perfect Jinchuriki, but did he have the level of cooperation from Isobu that Gyuki and Kurama give to Naruto and Killer Bee respectively? What I'm saying in a long-winded format here is there's a possibility that the tailed beast of either Killer Bee or Naruto would be able to break this Genjutsu. And while the Rinnegan has never conferred any immunity to Genjutsu, it's a possibility that Naruto with the Rinnegan would awaken some latent Uzumaki abilities, most notably the Mind's Eye of the Kagura, an Uzumaki ability that operates a lot like the Byakugan. However, unlike the Byakugan, the user of the Mind's Eye of the Kagura is able to extend their consciousness dozens of kilometers away from them and see chakra signatures, as well as see their own chakra signature and understands when they are placed under Genjutsu. So really going this Genjutsu route isn't the best option for Obito. It's kind of a waste of a Genjutsu that might have an insanely long cooldown. So considering the fact that both Killer Bee and Naruto have some of the highest defenses and speed in the entirety of Naruto, I can't see this version of Obito really winning, especially when you consider the fact that the Rinnegan is basically a hard counter to the Kamui, as you can't Kamui away from a lot of its abilities like Almighty Push and Almighty Pull, with the only means of escape from an Almighty Push or Pull being Kamuiing away your entire body. And not to mention that Naruto at this point would probably be able to absorb all ninjutsu, meaning even if Obito did get a lucky hit in, was able to get some ninjutsu that would hit Naruto, Naruto would simply be able to absorb it. And even though Obito would be able to dodge the majority of Naruto's physical attacks, the Rinnegan has soul-based attacks, like the abilities of the human and Naraka paths, with the human path being able to pull the soul out of somebody's body simply by placing your hand above it, and the Naraka path being able to rip your soul out of your mouth, and if you tell a lie while your soul is out of your mouth, it gets pulled out into the king of hell. These attacks don't attack the physical body, they attack the soul, something you can't Kamui away. So tie all of this together and you have a losing battle for Obito, or at least one that he would have to retreat from without getting what he came for, the Rinnegan, which could really do one of two things. One, postpone the war starting until Obito is able to get his hands on the Rinnegan, or two, simply just start the war. See, the war was started in order to acquire the Nine Tails. The Fourth Great Shinobi World War was always being fought over controlling Naruto, so its possibility upon Obito realizing that he needs to mobilize the entirety of his forces to take out Naruto starts the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, which is the same reason he started the Fourth Great Shinobi World War in the first place. But if the Fourth Great Shinobi World War does start without the Rinnegan in Obito's possession, it's a bit different. The biggest difference being that Naruto would have control over the Geto statue. And if Naruto was given enough time to proficiently train with the Rinnegan where he could control the Geto statue, he could release all the tailed beasts captured inside the Geto statue. And during the war arc, all the tailed beasts aren't released onto the battlefield until they're physically pulled out of Ten Tails Obito. Now, in order to pull these out of Ten Tails Obito, it requires the 4 Kage, Naruto, Sasuke, Killer Bee, and a bunch of Nine Tails amped Shinobi Alliance fodder people. But for a little while during the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, all nine-tailed beasts are battling against Madara and Obito and the rest of them. But if Naruto was in control of the Rinnegan, not only would we have never gotten Ten Tails Obito, the tailed beasts would have been battling on the sides of the Shinobi Alliance the second the war started, which not only would have minimized the amount of casualties that the Shinobi Alliance took in the first quarter of the war arc, it also would have made packing up all the revived ninjas significantly easier, as tailed beasts like Shukaku have inherent binding techniques, which would mean that Kabuto would have to resort to reviving Madara sooner than he had done in the original manga, as without Madara present, they would be fighting a losing battle. You have Obito without a Rinnegan, a bunch of revived Kage who get defeated in the original manga, and then a mishmash of a bunch of other powerful ninjas like the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist. But now the Shinobi Alliance are fighting the same people with a substantially stronger army, which would mean that the war effort of both Madara and Obito would be very singularly focused on Naruto. However, Naruto doesn't show up to the battlefield until pretty late in the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. I mean, his clones show up before him, but the actual Naruto, the Naruto you could rip the Rinnegan out of, doesn't show up until like halfway through. So Madara would be released onto the battlefield, and he would use the power of his Rinnegan to still be an absolute menace. We saw that with only one Rinnegan, he was able to knock out every single tailed beast. Now, this is after he been brought back to life and given one of the Rinnegan by Black Zetsu, so this wasn't the Edo Tensei version of him, but the Edo Tensei version of him has 2 Rinnegans. But obviously, with the help of 7 of the tailed beasts, the battle against Madara would have gone a little bit differently. Not to mention Naruto's shadow clone that was on the battlefield with the 5 current Kage also would have stepped up in the battle against Madara more likely than not. See, because in the original manga, the shadow clone that's with the 5 Kage dissipates in order to confer the message to actual Naruto that the 5 Kage will win against Madara, which they don't do. But Rinnegan or not, unfortunately in this circumstance, Madara would still be stronger than Naruto. Madara has a similar chakra pool, comparable defense with his Susanoo, greater mastery over the Rinnegan, is also a perfect sage through the Hashirama bounded cells. For all intents and purposes, at that current moment, they were very equal to each other, with the one key difference being Madara's Rinnegan proficiency. But fortunately for Naruto, he's not on that battlefield. He's actually battling against Obito, White Mask Obito, and his 6 paths, which are all reincarnated Jinchuriki. So while Madara would be able to defeat that shadow clone and the 5 current Kage, it wouldn't mean that much, because the real battle for Naruto would be against Obito. But this isn't White Mask Obito, it's just the same Obito we fought a couple weeks ago, but now he has a 6 paths of pain. Except they wouldn't be 6 paths of pain because Obito wouldn't have a Rinnegan. So Obito and all of the Jinchuriki he would be battling with wouldn't have the Rinnegan abilities they have in the original manga, which is a massive step down in power. But let's say for the sake of fun that Naruto during this battle still masters his connection with Kurama, which gives him KCM2. Even though with Obito and all of his 6 paths being significantly weaker, Naruto probably would be pushed into the situation where he had to unlock KCM2. It's my what if, so I'm doing what I want. It is at this point that Killer Bee, Naruto with now KCM2, Kakashi, and Might Guy find themselves up against Obito without a Rinnegan. And considering the fact that Kakashi had finally accepted his role in Rin's death and forgiven himself for it, he also now had full mastery over the Kamui, which meant he, and he alone, was already a pretty good battle for this version of Obito. I mean, we literally saw it happen. However, when you mix a little Naruto with a dual Rinnegan and KCM2, Might Guy, and Gyuki into the situation, it's not looking good for Obito. So either through the medium of a Speed Blitz or Chibaku Tensai or the human path or the Deva path, Obito's dying. He can only run away for so long, and considering the fact that Naruto is now probably faster than Minato without the use of flying Raijin, Obito's getting speed blitzed in this form. And if Naruto can speed blitz him and then throw him into a Chubaku Tensei that even Kaguya wasn't able to escape even though she can travel between dimensions, then it honestly doesn't look good for Obito. Now you could say that obviously Kaguya was hit with a 6-pass Chubaku Tensei, which makes you the center of gravity and not just a black ball that's basically a black hole, the center of gravity. But if you get thrown into it, you're basically the center of gravity. And from all this, we get a dead Obito. Now, unfortunately, a dead Obito from this means him and Kakashi never get to mend their bonds, and he never gets to give Kakashi his spirit Sage of 6-pass energy. It gives Kakashi spirit DMS. But Kakashi could just take his other eye, assuming he's not in the center of a Chubaku Tensei, that is. Now, maybe in Obito's last moment, him and Kakashi have a touching moment where they talk about Rin, and Obito forgives Kakashi, and Kakashi forgives Obito, blah, 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 who cares? Let's say, hypothetically, Kakashi says, give me that eyeball, and slaps the other one into his face. Now we have DMS Kakashi, which would be cool, except for the fact that Kakashi would have to walk around like Gojo from now on. See, Kakashi can't deactivate the Sharingan in his face. Now, he can oscillate them between a 3-Tomei Sharingan and the MS, which would mean he wouldn't have to constantly walk around with his Mangekyo Sharingan activated, which would absolutely blind him. However, if Kakashi did have 2 Sharingan, he would have to walk around with at least one of them out all the time, which would drain him of his chakra. So it would be kind of a bad idea to have 2 of them. I mean, well, obviously the likes of Madara have shown us that living without eyes as a shinobi isn't the worst thing, as Madara without eyes was able to defeat Sasuke. That's because he was using the Sage Jutsu of Hashirama that allowed him to feel his surroundings. And while Kakashi could probably operate without his eyes 90% of the time, it's not like he has the 6 eyes like Gojo. Gojo can still see when his bandage is on. He can just see really good when it's off. So let's say for the current moment, Kakashi decides to not take Obito's eye. Well, at least he decides not to put it in his own face. He just decides to hold on to it until maybe somebody better comes along that he can slap it into. Like he's gonna give it to Killer Bee or Mike Guy. That wouldn't make any sense. So to this point, the Kakashi, Killer Bee, and Naruto head to the main battlefield, where Madara is still tearing shit up. The 5 Kage have all been peaced, the tailed beasts have been knocked out, the entire 4th division is dead. But there's one big difference between the original manga and our what if version here. Even if hypothetically Itachi and Sasuke were able to get to Kabuto and make him release Edo Tensei, Madara would still be able to resist it, which would mean he would still be his Edo Tensei self. While this isn't technically the worst state of being for Madara, it's also definitely not the best. Because now that Obito and more importantly Black Zetsu don't have a Rinnegan, they can't use Rinne Rebirth on Madara to make him alive again, which means that Madara needs to not only acquire the Rinnegan from Naruto, but put it in somebody else and force them to use Rinne Rebirth to bring him back to life. And then Madara needs to take both of the Rinnegan, put it in his face, and enact the Eye of the Moon plan, which would mean that the war arc would boil down to a battle between Naruto and Edo Tensei Madara. That battle is close. KCM2 Naruto, with a lesser understanding of the Rinnegan than Madara, is a very good battle for Edo Tensei Madara. In fact, that's about as even as you're gonna get. However, Madara's now alone. Well, both of them would technically be able to control the Geto statue, so the Geto statue is kind of a null point. What Naruto has that Madara has is people around him. With Edo Tensei released, every single ally of Madara's is just gone. Obito's dead, he doesn't even have his eyeball anymore. And the second that Naruto possibly is getting pushed into a corner by Madara, guess what could happen? Kakashi could just DMS. Now, would this version of DMS Kakashi be as strong as the version of DMS Kakashi we saw in the manga? No. DMS Kakashi in the manga was working off the last bits of Obito's Sage of 6-paths chakra, meaning that everything we saw from DMS Kakashi was powered by Sage of 6-paths chakra, the strongest kind of chakra there is. But that doesn't change the fact that Kakashi would still have probably the same Susanoo. And while you might say, well, yeah, but Kakashi wouldn't have enough chakra to sustain the Susanoo, that's not really true. Considering Sasuke and Kakashi's war arc feats, it's not crazy to assume that during the war arc, they had comparable amounts of chakra. While the Susanoo that Kakashi would be using probably wouldn't be as strong as the one we saw in his battle against Kaguya, he would be able to sustain his Susanoo for a good amount of time. So while the Susanoo that Kakashi would be using probably wouldn't be as strong as the one we saw in his battle against Kaguya, he would be able to sustain his Susanoo for a good amount of time. And while this would not be the best possible thing for Kakashi because he was already going blind in his regular Kamui Eye, Naruto having the likes of a very alive, not having used 8 gates yet, Mike Guy, Kakashi, Sasuke, and the entirety of the Shinobi Alliance on his side against somebody who he is very comparable in strength with already, looks bad for Madara. And so Madara, before he can even turn into a 10-tailed Jinchuriki, because obviously he doesn't control the Geto statue or any of the tailed beasts, gets sealed. After which Kakashi would probably pull out the blind Kamui eye and replace it with his regular eye and then just switch which side he wears his headband on. I mean, we know you can replace eyeballs like light bulbs in the Naruto universe, why wouldn't he? But sealing Madara while he's still in his Edo Tensei form means a lot for the plot repercussions of Naruto. One, considering the fact that Madara was never technically alive and never pulled off Infinite Tsukiyomi, could never be used as a conduit for Kaguya's reincarnation. And considering the fact that Madara never reached his 3 Rinnegan 10 tails state, Hagoromo never would have came down to Sasuke and Naruto, meaning Naruto never would have got Sage of 6 Pass Chakra and Sasuke never would have got the 6 Tome Rinnegan, which leads to a very funky future for Naruto. See, if Kaguya is never released from the moon during the 4th Great Shinobi World War, that means she's still in the moon when Toneri cuts it in half, which would mean that 2 or 3 years after the conclusion of the 4th Great Shinobi World War, that Kaguya would get released, and that Naruto, promptly after defeating Toneri and destroying the Tenseigan, would probably have to contend with Kaguya, which meant that a battle between Kaguya, Hinata, who was amped off Hamura's chakra, and Naruto would happen on the moon. At which point I can only assume that Hinata in Naruto would actually get the Sun and Moon seals, which makes substantially more sense than Sasuke and Naruto getting the Sun and Moon seals, considering the fact they come from Hagoromo and Hamura. And considering the fact that Hinata would already have a standing relationship with Hamura, but Naruto wouldn't have a standing relationship with Hagoromo, Hagoromo would make himself appear in front of Naruto and give him the Sun seal, while Hinata would receive the Moon seal. And then Hinata in Naruto, the last vestiges of Hagoromo and Hamura's chakra, would seal Kaguya, probably in the same moon that they're currently standing on. The moon would just reform around Kaguya once again. It's that, or Kaguya wouldn't make herself immediately known and she would slink on down to Earth and try and collect all the tailed beasts, which would lead to another war, everyone battling against Kaguya, and then eventually probably Naruto and Sasuke sealing. I like the idea of Hinata and Naruto battling it out against Kaguya on the moon substantially more, as Hinata and Naruto having the Sun and Moon seals just makes more sense to me. But significantly before we get to the last, obviously Sasuke has to come into the fold. See, Sasuke probably wouldn't even know that Naruto got the Rinnegan. Therefore, him reviving Orochimaru and then having Orochimaru bring the 4 Kage back probably wouldn't change, which would mean that Sasuke would still be stuck on his ideology of wanting to become the Hokage, which would mean that after the defeat of Madara, which Sasuke would play a hand in, obviously, as one of the more powerful members of the Shinobi Alliance, that Sasuke would once again try to square up with Naruto, wanting to sever the final connection of friendship that he has left on this earth so he can lead Konoha into a brighter future that he envisions. At which point, Sasuke would proceed to get absolutely shit stomped, just trounced, full-on embarrassed. Dual Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan Sasuke is nothing to scoff at in terms of power. And while Naruto wouldn't have the Sage of 6 Paths amps that he has in the original manga, neither would Sasuke, which would mean Sasuke wouldn't have the 6 Tome Rinnegan, which would mean that Sasuke wouldn't be able to seal 8.5 of the tailed beasts, which would mean Sasuke wouldn't have the infinite power cell he had while Naruto was battling against him with only half of Kurama, which would mean that considering the fact that Minato had been summoned for the 4th Great Shinobi World War, Minato would have given the other half of Kurama to Naruto upon being released from this mortal plane. And not only would Naruto have the entirety of Kurama, but also Rinnegan. Even in the circumstance that somehow Sasuke managed to pluck out one of Naruto's eyes and shoved it in his own face, so it was a battle of Rinnegan versus Rinnegan, without the power of the 6 Paths, Sasuke wouldn't have been able to seal the 8-tailed beasts, as his tailed beast satellites were a variation of the 6 Paths Chibaku Tensei. So it really wouldn't be battle of Jinchuriki versus Jinchuriki like it was in the original manga. It would just be Naruto with more visual prowess than Sasuke, absolutely pimp slapping him. After which, being defeated, Naruto would re-invite Sasuke back to the village, which, for the moment, would close the cycle of hatred. However, Black Zetsu would still very much exist. But for the sake of me not explaining an entire other hypothetical war arc that happens somewhere down the line and possibly Boruto's timeline, let's say hypothetically that when Toneri starts making his moves against Earth, that Black Zetsu finds out about Toneri and decides that he's gonna glom onto Toneri in order to help Toneri crack open the moon to free his mother. As once Toneri acquires the Tenseigan, he'll be strong enough to break Kaguya out physically, which allows Black Zetsu to stop relying on the cycle of hatred, which is now stopped. And that when Kaguya is sealed by Hinata in Naruto, Black Zetsu is sealed right along with her. So what happens when you give Naruto the Rinnegan? Well, him and his soon-to-be wife reseal Kaguya in the moon, along with a manifestation of her will, Black Zetsu. At least, that's what I think would happen. But what do you guys think would happen if you gave Naruto the Rinnegan? Tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that notification. What if videos are so weird because they're the only videos that I write a script for, and that's just because I have to go through the entirety of Naruto's plot and be like, oh, this would be different, and this would be different. But then after that, like 3 or 4 hours of research, I just get to read the script, and it's so easy.